Welcome to the Wellness Show, episode number 432. Corey Poirier.
Welcome to the Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth.
15 seconds.
I'm your
gentlemen.
host, Tyhson Banighen, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. Welcome to the Wellness Show, and this is your host, Tyhson Banighen, the wellness guy, and today we're talking with Corey Poirier. He's doing a return to the show, and we're going to be talking about his brand new program called the Influencer Vault. But to start it off, let's get a sense of who is this Corey Poirier anyway. So tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to creating the Influencer Vault.
Wow. So that's, I'm going to give you the short story because that could be a big story.
Yeah, it is a big story, yeah.
It is. So I won't take too much time to share it. I'll just say that I'm going to say the crucial parts. I was born in a small little town, grew up in that small town, raised by a single mother, and struggled, barely graduated high school, got a 49+1 in a class I needed a 50 in, and didn't read a book until age 27, wrote a book at age 28. And the path from that kind of point forward, once I left that small town, was I basically went into sales first, found my way into public speaking or professional speaking by way of the stand-up comedy stage. You know that backstory, Tyhson?
I do. It's a great story.
I get tricked into performing stand-up is the shorter version. And then from there, I started interviewing people. I got obsessed with interviewing people. And I feel like that's when everything really just started. I continued speaking on stages. I continued interviewing people, and through that process launched a newspaper, which was then followed up by a podcast, which was then followed up by multiple podcasts. And then on the speaking side, I ended up speaking on some TEDx stages and really liked that approach to live talks. So I launched my own brand called Blue Talks. And I'm skipping a lot of elements, but that kind of brings us up to today, where I want to help more influencers get their people who want to become influencers or who already are, get their message out to more people and help them up level. And so that's where the Influencer Vault comes in, is I finally have been able to launch a platform to allow that to happen. So in what was that, a minute? I just shared.
Yeah, that was amazing. So let's backtrack. And the reason I wanted you to talk a little bit about your background, because, you know, it's sort of like the Horatio Alger story that is actually true from a Canadian perspective, that from somebody who had difficulty in fitting in with school and all the rest of that, right? And you had a lot going on, and you know, you were also a hypochondriac, if I remember correctly. A lot of things just really weren't coming together. And here you are now being an influencer in many, many different areas. And so I just really want people to know that if you stick to it and you have a goal like Corey does, that you can make a success out of yourself. So I consider you've made a success out of yourself, and I think others would agree. So that's really why I wanted to tell that story, right? It's a great story that encourages people that they too can do it.
Well, thank you so much, Tyhson. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's amazing now when I look back, because it's been a lot of years, but it's definitely been a journey. And I definitely started further behind than I believe a lot of people probably are today.
Yeah, and I think both you and I had that common desire, because it took us a long time to get launched, that we'd like to make it quicker for the next go around for people that join us, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can join up the dots, as Steve Jobs would say. Like, I can look at all the back pattern to how this stuff happened and reverse engineer it. And what I'm trying to do now is help people not spend 20 years, 25 years building this stuff when they don't have to. Like, I mean, that's part of my whole thing about interviewing people. If I can learn from 6,500 thought leaders what they do differently than everybody else, why does somebody else, the next person, want to recreate or reinvent a new wheel?
Or read all those books. So why thought leaders? What got you into interviewing thought leaders?
You know, well, it's interesting because it didn't start there. So I have to say, it wasn't like a thing where I said, I want to interview thought leaders and then started. It started way behind, further than that. So where it started for me is I was in a small business course, an entrepreneurial course. And for us to get our seed money or investment money, or whatever you want to call it, they were offering $2,500. if you finished the program and started a business. For us to get it, we had to have a business. We were planning to, me and the business partner, planning to launch a clothing store and a CD store. And ultimately, we found out with our research, it was going to cost us $250,000 each. And I think I had about $275 in my bank. So I think that I realized that wasn't going to happen. They're not going to lend that kind of money to a 18-year-old. And so I basically, we had interviewed all these thought leaders, or I'll say, sorry, small business owners, really, because they were like local town business owners. We interviewed them, and I was like, I'm obsessed with this. I love how we're learning from them. What if we were to turn that into the business? And then what happened was we launched a newspaper where me and the business partner had to sell advertising from scratch. Had never sold ads in our life. We were horrible, but that's what we had to do to pay the bills. And so I started interviewing people then, and I ran that for about a year. And I just really got, again, obsessed with the best word I can use for interviewing people. And then when I decided the newspaper wasn't feasible anymore, I moved across the country. Number of years passed. Once I was on my own again and had my own business, I decided I'd never close the door properly on that. So I launched a second newspaper, again, interviewing local business owners. And at some point within there, the flip just switched, saying, why am I thinking only local? Why can't I interview local, but also global? And so that's where I started reaching out. And then the stuff I started learning from people that were, you know, working with the biggest companies in the world and all this stuff, and we're working with 10,000 staff. The stuff I was learning from them was just like game changing. And then that's when I really became obsessed with, I want to interview small business owners, but also thought leaders who are operating at the highest levels, because you learn stuff that they're doing that allowed them to get there. That
let's do a little bit of name dropping, because I don't know if people understand what that you mean by a thought leader. So what is a thought leader? Let's give them some example of your favorite thought leaders that you've been working with.
So let's see. We have, if I go down sort of a mini list, the biggest names I think people would know, one would be Jack Canfield.
Yes.
And if somebody doesn't, like, because hear his name on its own, doesn't know Jack, as soon as they say chicken soup for the soul, that pretty much usually gets the rest of the people that don't know his name outside of that. So he co-created Chicken Soup for the Soul. The late Zig Ziglar, who a lot of people were impacted by, millions of people a year. Les Brown, Bob Proctor, J.J. Virgin, Marianne Williamson. James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy. You know, I know you have a lot of people watching and listening that are spiritual. That book, you know, opened the door for spirituality to a lot of people. So those are the kind of people, when I say thought leaders, that I mean. And to me, Tyhson, because people often wonder what the definition is to me, the big difference between, let's say, a thought leader and a high achiever is almost always a thought leader, especially a conscious one, is trying to lift or push other people up to the top of the mountain with them.
Oh, I like that. Okay, that's a great definition. So let's make a bridge back over to the influencer vault. So tell me how the thought leaders and all the information that you gathered and all the hot tips you got, that brought you to wanting to create the vault in order to provide that opportunity for others to learn from them. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, so the Influencer Vault is like a membership site mixed with an inner circle, mixed with a resource platform on steroids. And so essentially, to answer your question though, why I started it and why I want to go in this direction is because I find a lot of us who have a message, whether it's a healer, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, and on, our struggle is, how do we stop chasing the sales? How do we get the message out to more people and get a bigger voice? How do we impact other people on a higher and bigger scale? How do we actually get visibility and credibility and get it quicker? And so I wanted to help people do that. So I was trying to find people a hack or a shortcut to doing this stuff that took me, again, years and years. And so I said, what if it were possible, and it's a membership site, so I can say at a low monthly investment, to actually give those things to people so they didn't have to try to find them on their own. Like the amount of time, I'm sure you're the same, Tyhson, but the amount of time early in my career I would spend trying to discover opportunities for me to speak somewhere or to be interviewed or to write for a magazine and stuff like that. It was just, I was spending so much time doing that. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And so ultimately I said, what if I could bring those opportunities to people so they literally just have to apply? Or I can even connect them and say, hey, Tyhson's somebody that's in our Blue Talks community. Maria, I think he'd be a great fit for writing for your magazine. And make that connection. And then Tyhson doesn't even have to pick up a finger other than to just prove why he's a good fit to Maria, but he's already getting the kind of the okay from me. So on one hand, I wanted to provide people with the opportunities. So we have like a classifieds in there, I call it, but it's like a list of opportunities. Right now, I think there's 90 in there in the first 6 weeks that people can immediately apply for. But then on top of that, I said, what if I could offer the training too? Because if you want to up level, you need to have the secrets we just talked about.
Right.
And so this goes to your question. These people that I've interviewed, I'm like, the stuff I've learned from them, everybody needs to know this. So the backside of the platform is like Netflix for influencers. So there's categories like writing, speaking, podcasting, and you go in there and you can learn from some of our classic content, I call it. But bigger than that, we also do live weekly interviews. And so in the next 4 weeks, for instance, we have, I mentioned some of them, Bob Proctor, Les Brown, JJ Virgin, and John Gray. So Men Are From Mars. Those 4 are actually going to be on for live interviews where people inside our member site can ask them questions in real time. And so, yes, it was basically trying to take what I got and was able to get over the years and say, how can I offer this to other people? How can I have them experience what I've experienced? And I put it into this member site.
So, I mean, and when you're talking about all this, you really have had the experience of what? Being the speaker yourself, right? And maybe you could talk about what it is, how you've been helping people also through the Blue Talks. Like there's so much that you do offer, right? It's not the Vault membership site really is taking all of your expertise and putting it available to help people not only do public speaking, if I get right, but how to do social media, how to do the whole range of being an influencer. So maybe that we need to go back, what to you is an influencer, and why would somebody want to be an influencer? What's that all about?
So here's an important distinction. And right on our website for the Influencer Vault, it says, it starts out a story about Zig Ziglar and how Zig Ziglar had a mentor named PC Merrill. And Zig credits PC Merrill for launching his career. So you could make the argument if PC Merrill didn't exist, Zig Ziglar might have not exist. And Zig Ziglar is reported to have impacted over 100 million people. So I want to distinguish this as well, Tyson. An influencer can be PC Merrill. You might only have to influence one of the right people, and you're still an influencer, because it's pretty confident to say PC Merrill impacted millions of lives, even though he never knew it, or he might not have known it. So for me, when we talk about influencer, I don't think of it, and that's I guess a distinction I want to make. I don't think of it that it has to be that big name we know, like Gary Vaynerchuk or Tony Robbins. It doesn't have to be that. You can be influencing one person in coaching. Every day you could coach people one-on-one, and just that one person, you're an influencer to them. So first of all, why you'd want to be an influencer, I think it's because you get to create a positive ripple in other people's lives. But here's the key thing. It can be one person, or you could want to go one to many, as we call it. So you could want to speak on the stage and impact 100 or 1,000 or whatever. So to me, why you'd want to be an influencer is it gives you the ability to change somebody's life. I mean, you can be a leader and change somebody's life. You can be other titles. But I think as an influencer, and again, even if you look at an influencer as one-to-one, you're influencing change in somebody. And so why wouldn't you want to leave somebody better off than you found?
So as an influencer, in the way that you're defining it, you can do, you're changing one person at a time and changing the planet. But you're also saying as an influencer that the credibility that you'll get through the membership site and meeting people who are on the same path as you, that you're widening your prospects, you're widening your influence, and more people will know about you. Therefore, you can bring about more change and transformation in people's lives. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyson, if I can, I'd love to give people a shortcut or a hack for how people can literally walk away from our conversation today and start getting themselves that influencer or expert space or up-leveling their credibility. So I want to give an example because it might be good for people to see, okay, if we bring on an expert inside our Influencer Vault, what am I going to learn from them? The type of things, I'll give you an example. We had Mark Victor Hansen on recently, who was Jack's co-writing partner, and Mark sold 600 million books. And he revealed a thing called bypass marketing, which he says is mostly responsible for those 600 million book sales. So if you're just coming out with a new book, what's that worth to you? So it's that kind of stuff. But to give you one example from my perspective that I teach often is what I call the as seen on banner. And I know you've heard me talk about this before, but when you go to somebody's website, let's call them an expert, a Gary Vee, a Jack Canfield, or whoever, you're probably going to see as seen on at the top of their page or somewhere on their website. And it's going to say things like as seen on Oprah, as seen on the TEDx, as seen on Forbes, Entrepreneur, what have you. And psychologically, as a person who goes there, they gain a credibility in your eyes when they see that. So, for example, if I'm going to think about hiring somebody and I see at the top, as seen on it, list 12 shows or places they've been, there's a thing inside of me for most people that's going to go, oh, wow, look at them. And then it's going to make me take them more seriously. It's going to shorten the sales cycle and all those kind of things. But here's the key thing. What everybody thinks of, well, how long is it going to take me to get on Forbes and Oprah? That's the problem. You don't need to be on Forbes and Oprah to make this work for you. So I'm going to give people a shortcut. Go to a thing called radioguestlist.com website. Now, I don't make anything for saying this. I'm not affiliated with them. It's just, there's multiple websites like this, but it's the one I use. Radioguestlist.com. On the right-hand side, you can sign up for free for the newsletter. What's going to happen is every day you're going to get 4 or 5 email with 4 or 5 opportunities to be interviewed on podcasts. Apply to them. I would guess if you applied to 5, times what? If you did that for 2 weeks, 10 days, 10 business days, that's 50 you're applying for. You'd probably land 10 of them. And because these are podcasts that are actively looking for guests. So let's say you land 10 interviews, then ask them for their logo. All of a sudden now you have 10 logos to put inside your SC9 banner. And you do the interviews, of course. So let's say that takes you 2 weeks. So in a month, have an SC9 banner. That's probably increased your credibility, I would say tenfold at least. And so that's the kind of stuff it takes.
Yeah, great tip. Yeah, I mean, that's something I haven't done as well. And, and it's as seen on or heard on, it can include every part of what you've done, right? So for me, it could be like Simon Fraser University, UBC, CBC, all sorts of different things that I normally don't think about, but I have talked there or been interviewed or been a lecturer there. So yeah, so it's a way of being able to give you an idea of where the scope of who you are and where you've presented and the work that you've done. And so yeah, so talk a bit about the Blue Talks too, because this is a key part of being an influencer and how you're offering that as well. And how does that fit, or does it fit with Influencer Vault?
So first of all, yes, it fits. In fact, it's one of the platforms where we air Blue Talks. Yeah. That's just starting. But Blue Talks is basically, I kind of describe it like this for a visual. If Chicken Soup for the Soul and TEDx got married and had a baby, that baby would be Blue Talks. But what it really is, it's a mixture between, like, it's an anthology book the platforms are on, where it's a virtual event, it's a podcast, and it's a live event. So that's what Blue Talks is. So, when you think about watching a TEDx talk, a Blue Talks would be similar, but the difference is we include things like spirituality in those talks. And then an anthology, that's where I come up with like Chicken Soup for the Soul. So you're going to see different writers that write their chapters, like you were in our first Blue Talks book, Tyhson. Then we feature people on a Blue Talks podcast, and similar to TEDx's podcast. And then we do virtual summits, basically once every couple of months. And so Blue Talks is the platforms. But what it does, and we look at it in 2 ways. The audience that's watching it is one sort of customer, if you will. But the other customer, which a lot of people don't realize, is the back end. It's the person that we're helping get the platform. So it's the person who's on the Blue Talks stage who's now going to be seen on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, all these various platforms that have their talk broadcasted there, or be in a book that's not only on Amazon, but Barnes & Noble and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, Blue Talks really is the platform. And the platform, the idea is to help influencers get their message out to more people. And then as an end user or the person in the audience or reading the book, it's to hopefully inspire you, motivate you, educate you, all that kind of good stuff.
Wow. So when you join the Influencer Vault, you get to not only learn how to market yourself, how to meet and work with a tribe of like-minded people, get influencers from, helping you with tips by doing, attending actual interviews or live discussions with them. But you also get an opportunity to be published as part of the Blue Talks in one of the books, and also present on stage. And is there even more than that? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot that's offered, right?
Yeah, well, and so the Blue Talks, I'll distinguish too, the Blue Talks and the Influencer Vault are linked but separate. So in other words, they're separate opportunities, but the Blue Talks air inside the Influencer Vault.
I got it, yeah.
So we air those talks and those interviews that we do, like ones we've done with you, virtual, that all airs inside the Influencer Vault. So they are separate, but they definitely kind of work together. But there is, your question about, is there more? Besides the stuff I mentioned, like being a monthly membership site where you get to sit in with top name influencers and get access to leads and all that kind of stuff. Also, what we decided to do for people that join the Influencer Vault this month, which is kind of like our grand opening, if you will, is basically we're doing a draw for everybody that signs up before the end of the month, that I'm going to profile or feature 20 people in the different platforms that I contribute to. So like Influencive and Medium and Thrive Global, I'm going to actually feature the person. So they're going to have their own feature piece. So I'm going to do that. That'll be a draw, but then everybody that jumps in gets access to our pre-recorded 5-week entrepreneurship, and it's also called speakerpreneurship, authorpreneurship. Those are tongue twisters. Masterclass. So Tyhson, I think you even attended this. You were part of this, I think. But this is a masterclass that originally, when we launched, I think it was $450 or $500, and we had hundreds of people that signed up for it. And then after it was done, I've never once launched it again as charging for it. I decided for everybody that signs up this month, I'm going to give them that class, which is 5 weeks of how do you write a book and how do you get on stages. But what's really cool is I bring on some special guests. So we brought on Tom Ziegler and talked about how his father Zig became one of the best speakers of all time. And we bring on James Redfield to talk about how he sold so many copies of Celestine Prophecy. And then we have Kelly Filardo, who I know you're familiar with, who actually reveals her bestseller strategy on week 5. Well, that's 5 weeks of training, 1 hour each week. So you get access to it. It's 5 hours basically of separate trainings that you get access to completely free when you join the Influencer Vault this month. So that's another thing, another gift.
Wow. So how much is this Influencer Vault?
So this is the part that's kind of intriguing, because when I build it up like this, I think sometimes I had somebody say to me the other day when I told them the price, they thought it was times 100, and I'll explain what I mean. So basically, if you're listening from Canada, it's 44 Canadian a month. And that converts to about 35 US if you're listening from the US per month. So it's essentially a little over $1 a day. And, we used to hear the thing, isn't it worth a cup of coffee a day? But it's less now than a cup of coffee, because a Starbucks coffee is what, $5? So it's like, 6 Starbucks coffee a month, basically, or 7. But why I bring this up, Tyhson, as far as how it's structured, is it's essentially 44 Canadian or 35 US. And then the person I said this to about 3 weeks ago said, okay, so it's $3,500 then. And they kept talking like they immediately thought I meant $3,500 for this. Now, they didn't say if they thought it was yearly, one time, or monthly, but they thought it was worth $3,500. And here we're talking about $35.
Right.
So honestly, I know because of what my other stuff costs. Like, I've never been able to offer anything else I don't think we've had anything under 1,000 other than that masterclass I mentioned, which was 500. Everything else has been thousands. And you know this firsthand. And so this is legit. This is the lowest price I've ever been able to do anything. And I've been working toward this for a long time. So I actually get kind of giddy that we can offer at this price, even though I should be like, hey, I'm cannibalizing future sales of my programs. But that doesn't matter. I'm trying to impact more lives.
Yeah, and it really is a gateway to all your other programs too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's for sure some people that'll say, this happens all the time, they'll say, I love this. So for example, I love the person you brought on to talk about TED Talks, but I don't want to have to figure some of the stuff out myself, or I don't want to have to do it myself. Can you help me with this? There's going to be people that still want you to help them, and they'll want to jump into the bigger program to have more guidance. So you're right. It'll probably lead to more on the back end at some point. But what I'm meaning as well is there's a part of you going, I can't believe I'm offering it at this price. I shouldn't even offer it at this price but I know it's right. I've been working towards it for a while, so I know it's right. So yeah.
I just like to let people know in my tribe that, Corey is the real thing. Corey, how long have we been doing the mastermind together? I'm in Corey Poirier's mastermind, and we've been working together, I don't know how many years now.
It's either 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah. And we meet once a week, and it's a small group, and we help grow each other's business. And I can tell you honestly, we've really, really become tight in helping each other grow our businesses. And for that, I'm truly grateful. And I know that if you join the Influencer Vault, you're going to get as much help in growing your business, maybe not to the same level as I get, but you'll certainly start that journey. And this is the real deal. This is, and Canadian born and bred. So, it's, it has less hype and more authenticity is what I'm going to say. If you join, it's something that I can certainly believe in, and I think that the listeners should be able to piggyback on our experience together. That we I don't know what talk about from your point of view. How was mastermind for you?
Well, it kind of goes full circle of what you're talking about, Tyhson, and the feeling is mutual, because I get just as much from it from everybody else. But what's really intriguing to me is the Influencer Vault. And you're in a unique situation that not many people are in, that you've seen it being built over years, 2 years, building it in the behind the scenes, and even offered insight. Well, I would offer this, or I think this, and I even asked you guys, I think as recent as a month and a half ago, what do you think about this, and what are your thoughts here? And so you were part of seeing it built. So you get to see firsthand how much went into it.
Yes, absolutely.
And so to answer your question, it's so many things. So it's the every week having that those people that you can share stuff with if you need to. And we've shared deep stuff and we've shared very light stuff. And it's having that every week, I think, is invaluable. It's having people that can say, oh, you're looking for somebody to help you with this. I know exactly who you should talk to. It's also having that sounding board. Again, I'm wondering about your thoughts on this. What do you think I should do? And, just, I won't go into any detail, but just this past week, I had a situation I thought I'd ask you guys about your opinion on. And it was a very deep, I'm not gonna say deep conversation, but it was something that it's hard for a business owner to ask the question. Again, I won't go into any detail, but you guys helped me through it. And so it's, I get so much from it. Like, it's the feedback, but it's also the resources of, now I know somebody that if I need somebody to help me with healing, I know either Tyhson could be the person or he'll know who I should go to. And yeah, I can't say enough of it.
Yeah, and really the influencer vault comes out of this in the sense of bringing this to a wider group of people, so that as a group you can learn from each other and also be encouraged to make the next step to bring you into being an influencer yourself in whatever area that you want to deliver your uniqueness to the world. Well, thank you, Poirier. Corey, any last words that you'd like to say about why this is such an amazing deal? I mean, at this point, to me, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't anybody want to do this, right? But what's the last thing that comes to mind? Why do you think somebody should do this?
Well, I think, and I should add too, because with Zoom, it's a little different, but I think I can go and put the link in the comments for the different places that we're airing this. So if people are wondering, how do I check it out? Yeah. I can go put the link in. So if people want, if you're listening now, the link will be there in a couple minutes. I just want to put that in. But Tyhson, I'll add to that as well and answer that with the part I didn't add, which I should be adding more often, because I think it's a component I forget. And it goes back to us being in a mastermind together, the community.
Yes,
so that
absolutely.
actually be able to ask somebody, put it out there, what do you think about this? I have 3 separate Facebook groups and they work at varying levels. I have my speakers community for my programs. We have the Blue Talks author one, which I think you're a member of, and then the Influencer Vault one. And all 3 of them have different people in it. But to be able to say, hey, I'm putting a book out. What do you guys think of this title? What do you think about the cover for this? Or, hey, I just got offered the speaking gig, but they want me to do this. Is this ethical? What do you think about this? To have a community to ask those questions, and then also maybe even work together. Like somebody just asked me 2 days ago, can I put things about our magazine we launched inside the Influencer Vault to see if anybody is interested in being involved in the magazine? So this is outside of the opportunities that I'm sharing and stuff. This is somebody within the community who didn't have to ask me, who could have just posted that. And now all of a sudden people may have an opportunity to now write in her magazine, or they might partner together on a summit. You never know where it's going to lead. Right. So the community is the other part I forget to mention sometime, but I think it's just crucial.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for those that are listening to it, to the broadcast right now, the link to join the Influencer Vault will be in the show notes, and also we'll make sure that Corey's link also is underneath wherever the broadcast is as well. So Corey, if there's anything else you want to put in the show notes, send it on and we'll include it in the show notes wherever it gets broadcast as a podcast or through our network. So thank you for showing up, and I'm excited to join myself and be part of this community. And so, yeah, great.
My pleasure, my friend. I appreciate you. I salute you. I thank you. And until next time.
Yeah. And until then, be happy, wealthy, and wise. See you next time. Bye for now.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.